Let me ask you something really quick. Why are these following scenes considered either bad or cheesy or really ineffective to the plot?
Tonight's forecast. A freeze is coming.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Normals is setting on the dryer. People like us, we don't get normal.
Why?
I'm so proud of you, Charlie. If you ever need me, I'll be right here. You just call me.
You complete me. And I just had...
Shut up. Just shut up. You had me at hello.
Now let me ask you, why are these so-called cheesy scenes from Enter the Dragon forgiven?
It's the dough, Roper, or we gotta break something. You got it?
Among all the Sheldon men I have taught, there is one who has turned the ways of knowledge and strength to his own base ends.
Run! Run!
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got myself into this situation.
Oh, and let's not forget the cheap kick and punch sound effects that are heavily used throughout the movie. So, all of these scenes and lines are considered to be cheesy, but some cheesy lines and scenes get a pass. Why is this? Cheesy can be defined as cheap, unpleasant, or blatantly inauthentic. While many may consider Enter the Dragon to be cheesy, it is also considered one of the most iconic movies of all time, as well as the best martial arts film of all time by many. It was even preserved in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. I want to bring up 3 other cheesy films that general audiences seem to have enjoyed, including myself: The Room, Death Proof, and From Dusk Till Dawn. All of these are also incredibly cheesy, but in completely different ways. The Room is a cult classic because of just how incredibly, unbelievably, and profoundly cheesy it is, that it is just very comedic.
You are lying! I never hit you! You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
It wouldn't be nearly as popular or give the viewers such a positive experience if the cheese was toned down at all. It also does not give the impression that is ingenuine at all. It seemed that this was the exact movie that Tommy Wiseau wanted to make, and he had all the power to make it, so no studio interfered. It was a passion project, just in a different way from contemporary ones.
God, forgive me.
Death Proof and From Dusk Till Dawn are different, but they're in the same boat as each other in the sense that they are cheesy on purpose to pay homage to the films it is stylized after, as well as create a goofy tone that makes it more fun to watch than if it took itself too seriously. While the cheesiness of Enter the Dragon is neither from intentional stylization or incompetence, it does give that overwhelmingly positive experience that the above listed films give. It was described as a low-rent James Bond thriller since its tone was similar to those types of films, which are also critically and financially successful. It is very obvious that this film was not made lazily because Bruce Lee himself did all of his stunts, he did the choreography for all the fights, and he was seriously injured multiple times on set, being bitten by the snake, and being cut severely by glass bottles because they had to use real bottles as Hong Kong didn't have any breakaway glass. He was giving his all for this movie. the director and writer seemed to achieve Bruce Lee's goal because I know he would not let anything subpar in his film. He wanted to be an international star, and this film was his first American film. And it was also the first Chinese martial arts film to be produced by a major Hollywood studio. He was said to be like the Beatles in the sense that he was an overnight success when America found out about him. It is no secret that Bruce Lee was the main reason this film did so well, but it also may be because of his untimely death. This film was a masterpiece because it was his best. Fist of Fury was good, but it didn't come close to Enter the Dragon. But all we can do now is wonder what could have been if he survived, and films like his nearly completed Game of Death would have been like, and if they would improve on his philosophy and fight scenes. This is the best we have from him, and although his older films are still great, do not compare in scale and spectacle to Enter the Dragon. The ideology in the mix of all this, almost surreal-like extreme action, also makes it memorable. In this film, we see Lee's philosophy on life and fighting, which was passed down through generations by those who wanted to reach his level.
Into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
The theme of this movie seems to be true strength versus true weakness, as Bruce Lee is the only one that uses his weaknesses to his strength, making him truly strong, while everyone else is taken down by their true weakness. Roper was supposed to be punished by not fighting Lee, but his inability to fight the man he respects leads to him beating the brute strength of Bolo. In one of my favorite subtle moments of the film, and one of the few, Han is showing Roper a guillotine and places a cat in it. He's about to let the cat die, but Roper pulls the cat out of harm's way. Han was testing him as the guillotine was not real. It was only an elevator switch. Han then says,
"Very few people can be totally ruthless. It isn't easy. It takes more strength than you might believe."
He sees Roper as weak for not being ruthless like he is, but in the end, he is truly the weak man. Lee's fighting without fighting technique shows that true strength comes from adapting your situations, which is how Lee ultimately defeats Han. Playful cinema with serious messages seem to be dying down. Most films are either completely goofy, spectacle-driven, or philosophy-driven. Rarely are they ever all in one film. George Lucas famously said, "Spectacle without story is boring," and it seems that the story, spectacle, and philosophy of this movie are evenly balanced enough to make it effective in all categories. The only close to modern movie that does this is the two Kill Bills, but they are very heavily inspired by Bruce Lee and his work. Speaking of spectacle, this film contains one of my favorite visual scenes in any movie, the mirror room scene. The mirrors disorient the viewer, so we are in the same state as Lee in the moment. It not only looks cool, but represents how Han is using illusions. He puts on an image that he is stronger than he is, and thinks that gives him the upper hand. But Lee does not do this. He fights as himself and uses what his master taught him to break away the outer illusion Han has put forward and defeat him once and for all.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives.
It is a simple yet effective scene, but that can be said for most of the movie. The filmmaking was not lazy at all, as this scene and the set design and music show us, as they were very inspired to create a modern-oriented feel and give it its iconic style. In conclusion, I've summed up the reasons that the cheesiness of Enter the Dragon works. 1. Cheesy movies were conventional in the 70s, and even if it may seem dated, it is charming to see how people made what was modern at the time. 2. The film isn't taking itself too seriously. Even if there are very serious moments, it embraces the over-the-top fun and badassery the audience wants to see, while giving basic yet effective philosophy that can be applied to fighting and life. 3. Everyone involved in making the film seems to be genuine in making the film. They put effort into it and made what they want to make, especially Lee, which really defies the definition of cheesy. 4. It is an icon's masterpiece. While it isn't perfect, it is the best work we can see from him, and every time we want to see Bruce Lee put his heart into something, this is the best example we can use. 5. While cheesiness usually stems from lack of effort, as I said before, there was a lot of effort put into this film, so the cheesiness is very likely intentional. And 6. The film contains some of the best action scenes ever, and no cheesy moments could take away from that, even if they weren't charming and intentional like the scenes we see are. I really think modern day action films could take notes from this movie, as we see a lot of the same thing over and over with little to no charm or passion. To say Enter the Dragon is a bad film because it is cheesy would be a crime. It set the stage for generations of martial arts movies and movies in general. Although it is flawed, I think it is perfect for what it is trying to be, and is easily one of my favorite films of all time.